You decided to do a PhD, hopefully after careful consideration and after watching my video focused on to do or not to do a PhD. Now this video will explore what to expect at the interview. The interview is not only an interview for you, but also you interview your future supervisor. So it's always going in both directions. It has to be a good fit. Yeah, so don't get upset if it doesn't work out. Quite often it's a good decision. A PhD is a long-term investment. We're talking about 3 or 4 years of your life. So if you don't have a good match between a PhD student and supervisors, it's not going to be easy. So what are the different elements that are usually part of an interview process? And I have to say I have done many interviews over about 15, almost 20 years. I'm really getting old. Also, I applied for PhD positions in different disciplines. And so I think I have quite a bit of experience and I can understand both sides of the table, so to speak. So usually a PhD interview starts with a very general question. So don't expect something highly specific. So the most obvious thing to ask, number one, is what is your contribution? What do you want to achieve in your PhD project? What is your value added? So that's number one. Now this can be worded differently, but also this is for me an essential point to make. So if you do not know what you want to contribute, that's not a very good starting point. In terms of contribution, what can you actually do? In terms of contribution, theory is far less likely in a PhD project in my field. Methods, possible. Yeah, so methods, in particular when it comes to new empirical methods, I had a few students that pushed a bit the boundaries in this respect, but it's not really theoretical work, so it goes more into empirical methods. A bit of maybe some applied statistics. The other area which is actually the most significant one is what you might call empirical evidence. Yeah, so that I just put this here as evidence. So here I talk about novel empirical findings. So why is it novel? What's the novelty here? So very often this might refer to new data or your own data collection, for instance. Or it might be a new way of measuring things. Yeah, so new measures. Or it's maybe a very special time period or a very special problem or some country-specific issue which nobody else explored. Yeah, so anything that is unique, basically. So this could be a country-specific focus, for instance. The only thing I want to mention is when it comes to country-specific PhD projects, you have to be very careful not to focus only on one country case. I don't think it's a good idea for publications. So in this case, what I usually suggest is to have one chapter that is country specific and maybe another chapter that is maybe a cross-country study. Just to make sure that a cross-country dimension is part of a PhD project. It's usually easier for publications. So these are the elements you would expect in terms of contribution. So theory, not very likely. Methods, possible. Empirical evidence, that's the majority of the projects I would supervise. Number two, motivation. So I will always ask, why do you want to do it? What's your motivation? What's your end goal? Maybe also what is your long-term career perspective? So what do you want to achieve with it, basically? I think this is very important because a PhD project is a long-term project. We're talking about 3, most likely 4 years, sometimes even longer. It's crucial that you are motivated and you can convince supervisors that you will be motivated for a longer period. Here, the main factor is intrinsic motivation. You have to be self-driven. Yeah. So if you have the question, why do you want to study for a PhD? The answer is never because my parents want me to do a PhD. That's not a good answer. I don't care. It's not intrinsic. Yeah. So this is not a good idea. So anything which comes from outside, some outside pressure, is not a good motivator. Another element which will be most likely covered is, broadly speaking, I would argue, a basic understanding of research methods. So usually I don't go very deep into a specific literature here. I don't expect that an applicant already has a very strong understanding of the literature. I would certainly not expect that. However, I would expect a solid understanding of research methods. And again, here it's mostly around the basics, the understanding, for instance, sampling. So how do you select your sample? This would be a valid point. How many observations? What time period? How do you construct it? How do you collect the data? How would you like to analyze your data? Of course, I have done lots and lots of videos on research methods, so you can check out my playlists on data science and applied mathematics. It would be a bit alarming if you explore this in the interview and you get the impression there is no basic understanding of research methods. That would be a concern. Nobody expects anyone to be an expert at this point, but at least I would say a solid understanding of the basics is what you would look for. In my field, we only focus on quantitative research methods. Yeah, we don't do qualitative stuff, none of it. If you are, of course, applying in other areas, the game is a bit different. Number 4, for me, another area which is important is what I might call a willingness to learn. Yeah, so this I think is quite relevant. So this whole element of learning and self-study is absolutely vital. So if you do a PhD and your attitude is basically I know it all, you know, it's not a good start. Yeah, so I want to be convinced that someone is really motivated and willing to learn. So that I definitely would explore. When it comes to learning, of course, in my area, it's quite important that you pick up programming languages. The last thing which always will pop up is having a plan. So what's your plan? Yeah, what are the different steps? How do you want to achieve them? Yeah, so that's something I would always look for. So here you have it. So these are the 5 key elements in a PhD interview in my experience. Number 1, definitely what is your contribution? Yeah, so what's your value added? If you can't answer that, that's a bad sign. Number 2, very crucial, motivation. Again, you have to have a good story why you really want to do it. Number 3, a basic understanding of research methods. Number 4, willingness to learn. Yeah, learn new things, absolutely essential in a PhD project. Number 5, you have to have a plan. Again, here I don't expect this plan to be perfect. That's not the point. The main point is I want to see that someone is able to have a structure in place. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any comments, questions, please leave some comments below and I'll see you in the next one.